Hi everyone, my name is Rosie Davidson, and this week I covered Chapter 11, Neuroses and Mental Illness. The chapter opens up with a thought by Freud that many behavior patterns arise out of the need to protect ourselves against the anxieties that coercion provokes. And this thought is kind of present throughout all of the different subtopics that Sidman covers in the rest of this chapter, and kind of the angle that he approaches them all from. He goes into more detail about some specific defense mechanisms against coercion. The first one he touches on is phobias. He says we do not have them, but that they are just observations about behavior, whether we are doing something more than what's considered normal or less than what is considered normal. He describes that there's absence of behavior, like when someone has a phobia of crowds, they just will not put themselves in a situation to be near a crowd, or that some actions happen more often, like if somebody's walking down a street and there's a crowd ahead of them, they will turn and run the opposite direction. These behaviors should alert the rest of us to a possible history that included severe or a high occurrence of punishment. The person may or may not be aware of the cause to their phobia, but that doesn't make it any less significant. And they just know that there is some internal discomfort from crowds or spiders or heights or whatever their phobia is from. They just know that that thing or that action is giving them a lot of internal discomfort. And classical psychiatry will focus on what made the crowds aversive, whereas a behavior analyst should focus on the actual act of avoidance, whether it's not going out in public or running away from that crowd that's up ahead of you. Next, Sidman goes into about sublimation, which is partaking in the same behavior but in a socially acceptable manner. For example, instead of fist fighting, young kids may watch football or even play football because it's an acceptable way of still hitting somebody and throwing them to the ground and physical aggression, whereas fist fighting is not socially acceptable. Next is reaction formation, which is when we are strongly inclined to react in a way that we know will bring on a shock, we will do the opposite to prevent it. So if you know that not cleaning your room is going to cause your parents to yell at you and ground you and take things away from you, you're going to clean your room so that way none of those negative things will happen to you. Next is projection, which is blinding ourselves to our own behavior by attributing it to others. So the example given was liars are often punished not because others do not believe them, but because they do not believe others. So the liar is projecting his pathology of lying onto others, and that everyone else must be lying, so he can't believe them because he's a liar himself, or herself for that matter. Projection is the avoidance of self-awareness. Next, Sidman moves on to displacement, which is directing the disapproved conduct at someone who will not punish the action or yourself. Sidman uses the example of a little boy who tries to move or push or be aggressive towards his baby sister, and the parents yell at him for it. Because he learned that moving his sister was not acceptable, he moved on to hitting the family dog, who would run away and just not react in a negative way and would actually do what he wants. So he's displacing his feelings towards his sister onto his dog. Next was regression, acting younger than you are, or reverting back to a previously successful behavior when a current one is not working. So if a teenager clings and whines to a parent, they can avoid chores and adult-like responsibilities. In a lab, Sidman talks about if a rat is taught a new way to earn food and is reinforced for that way, and then reinforcement stops for the new way, the rat will return to the method it was previously using before the new method was taught. Next, Sidman moves on to obsessions and compulsions. When a behavior becomes so frequent and all-consuming, this is an obsession and